Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Okay, so today we are unpacking a topic that quite literally affects every single one of us. We're looking at the fascinating and frankly, sometimes a little bit alarming intersection of artificial intelligence and our brain health. We're going to dive into some incredible insights from brain expert Jim Kwik, and together we'll discover the hidden cognitive costs of our digital age. But more importantly, we'll talk about exactly how you can protect and really build up those mental muscles.
I want to kick things off by asking you a pretty bold question. Are we raising the dumbest generation due to AI? It's a super provocative thought, isn't it? I mean, when we constantly hand over our thinking, our calculating, and our problem solving to technology, what exactly is happening to the human brain? Well, as you'll see, we're about to find out that the everyday conveniences we absolutely love might actually be costing us our cognitive strength.
And that brings us to Section 1, the AI brain drain. Let's dive right into this. We spend hours and hours just looking at screens, letting algorithms completely curate our world. But here's the thing, just like a muscle that sits in a cast for a year is going to atrophy and get weak, our brains follow that exact same use it or lose it rule. And that leads us to a concept called cognitive offloading. This is basically when we use something external to do the mental heavy lifting for us. Now, writing a shopping list or using GPS to navigate, in small doses, that's totally fine. But when AI starts doing the actual thinking for us, taking away all the friction from our daily lives, that's when we step into some dangerous territory. We literally stop doing the deep work that's required for real learning.
Think of AI kind of like an elevator. Taking the elevator to the 6th floor is incredibly convenient, right? It saves time, it saves energy. But if you never ever take the stairs, you're going to lose your physical fitness. Taking the stairs represents cognitive friction. It's the deep work, the critical thinking, and the struggle that's actually required to learn something new. If AI is just constantly spoon-feeding us answers, we become mentally lazy. And honestly, worse than that, we become much easier to manipulate because we're losing our ability to critically analyze information for ourselves.
And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. Take a look at a recent MIT study on college students who were writing essays. They had Group A use ChatGPT, Group B use Google, and Group C use neither. When researchers looked at the results and the cognitive tests afterwards, Group A, the AI group, showed the absolute least amount of cognitive engagement and recall. No way, right? But it makes sense, because learning actually requires effort. When you outsource the effort, you are outsourcing the learning. It's that simple.
Moving right along to Section 2, building your cognitive reserve.
So if we're currently draining our brains, how on earth do we reverse the trend? Well, think of your brain like a bank account. You want to make deposits for a rainy day, right? To protect yourself against cognitive decline and serious diseases like Alzheimer's. Cognitive deposits are things like learning a brand new skill, reading, exercising, and maintaining deep social connections. But on the flip side, we are constantly making cognitive withdrawals. These are the things draining your account. Chronic stress, processed foods, sleep deprivation, and those hours spent doom scrolling on social media.
Let me just challenge you directly for a second here. Think about the last time you went out to dinner. When the bill arrives, do you immediately reach into your pocket, pull out your phone, and use the calculator just to figure out a 20% tip? It seems so harmless, doesn't it? But this is exactly what we mean by cognitive surrender. It's this tiny, everyday moment where we just refuse to use our brain's wattage, and instead we outsource a super basic mental task to a machine. And this reliance on quick digital fixes, it is deeply affecting our attention spans. To put that into perspective, according to recent data, only 16% of the population reads daily. Just 16%. More than half of all people won't read a single book this entire year. We are completely losing the habit of sustained focus, and we're trading it in for highly stimulating short-form digital consumption that is literally rewiring our dopamine systems.
So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is summarized perfectly by this quote from Jim Kwik. Reading is to your mind what exercise is to your body. There's actually this amazing study on a group of women known as the super nuns. These women preserved their cognitive functions beautifully into their 80s, 90s, and even beyond. And what was their secret? Well, alongside their faith and community, they were constantly reading, they were writing by hand, and having deep, complex debates. They were working out their mental muscles every single day.
Which brings us to Section 3, the power of metacognition.
Now that we really understand the stakes, how do we make sure we don't just survive this AI revolution, but actually thrive in it? To do that, we really have to lean into the HUMAN advantage. Look, no human is ever going to outprocess or outcompute AI. It's just impossible. So let's walk through this acronym. H is for heart. That's our compassion and empathy, which AI can mimic, sure, but never truly feel. U is for understanding, which is driven by our natural human curiosity. M is for meaning, our drive to find purpose in our lives.
A is for adaptability, meaning cognitive flexibility, our ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn based on new information. And finally, N is for nexus, which is our deep fundamental need for social connection and community.
Central to leaning into our humanity is this concept of metacognition. It's widely considered the highest form of human intelligence. Metacognition is, simply put, your ability to think about your own thinking. If you remember that classic movie The Matrix, when Neo visits the Oracle, there's a sign right above her door that says, "Know thyself." That right there is metacognition. It's taking a step back and being totally self-aware of your own mental processes.
Okay, so how do we actually practice this in the real world? First, just start noticing your thoughts without judgment. Maybe just observe them over your morning cup of coffee. Second, question their origin. Is this belief truly yours, or was it planted there by an algorithm, some marketer, or a social media feed? And third, write. Jim Kwik has this brilliant rule. If your mind is empty, read. But if your mind is full, write. Writing forces you to actually organize your thoughts and retrieve information, which is a massive, massive cognitive deposit.
And finally, we arrive at section 4, mind before media. How we start our days pretty much dictates the overall health of our brain and our ability to maintain focus. When you first wake up, you enter this state called sleep inertia. You're transitioning from being asleep to being awake, and your working memory is basically a completely blank slate. Because of this, you are highly susceptible to something called attentional priming. This means whatever inputs you feed your brain in those very first few minutes are going to have a vastly disproportionate effect on your focus, your mood, and even how you frame conversations for the rest of the entire day. So, knowing all this, we've got to protect that morning window at all costs. Here's a game plan, an ideal timeline to really defend your focus. When you wake up, avoid screens entirely. Do not look at your phone. Instead, try a fast-forward visualization. Just close your eyes and mentally time travel to the end of the day. Imagine exactly what needs to happen for you to feel like today was a massive success. Then, shift gears and complete a really small, simple task. If you're lacking motivation, just aim for a tiny win. I'm talking about flossing literally just one tooth or tossing a single sock in the hamper. Doing this releases a quick hit of dopamine, which is the molecule of motivation, and that propels you forward. You should only be consuming media after your mind is fully primed and protected. Mind before media. Intention before interruption.
I want to leave you with this final kind of provocative thought. Imagine your life is a flight. Are you the pilot of your brain, sitting right there in the cockpit, totally determining your destination? Or have you cognitively surrendered? Are you just sitting in the passenger seat, letting AI, algorithms, and digital distractions fly the plane through endless turbulence? You have agency. You have sovereignty over your own mind. Now, it takes work, for sure. It takes taking the stairs instead of the elevator, but the cognitive reserve you build right now